Welcome to the Podkey Summary of Dolph Ziggler. Today's catch-up is about Nick Nemeth, better known for years as Dolph Ziggler, and why his career looks different when you step back from the WWE version of it. There's the wrestler who kept getting rebuilt, cooled off, and rebuilt again. The amateur standout whose real athletic background was oddly underused. And now the post-WWE version of him who's suddenly collecting major titles around the world. And running alongside all of that, he quietly built a second career in comedy, which honestly tells you a lot about how determined and restless this guy has always been. Before the bleach blonde entrance and all the swagger, Nemeth had a seriously legit amateur wrestling base. At Kent State, he set the school's career wins record at the time with 121 victories and won 3 Mid-American Conference championships. Go back even further, and he still stands out. At St. Edward High School, he set the career record with 82 pins, which is one of those numbers that sounds made up until you realize how much mat time and grind that really takes. He was also accepted to Arizona State's law school before choosing pro wrestling full-time, which gives his whole story this great alternate universe version where he's cross-examining somebody instead of bumping all over a ring. What makes this especially interesting is that WWE never fully leaned into that amateur background. There was reportedly a proposed wrestling-based gimmick, sort of in the Kurt Angle lane, and it never really happened. So one of the strongest foundations he had as a performer became more of a footnote than a centerpiece. A big part of Nemeth's WWE story is that he kept getting handed characters that were hard to take seriously, and he kept trying to make them work anyway. He showed up as a caddy for Chavo Guerrero, then became Nikki in the Spirit Squad, which was a male cheerleader act, and very much not the kind of role people usually point to when they're predicting future main event credibility. But by his own account, he understood that some of those gimmicks were probably designed to fail, or at least were incredibly difficult to get over, and he still attacked them like they mattered. That mindset is kind of the through line here. Instead of waiting around for the perfect opportunity, he treated even the weird ones as a test he might be able to pass. Then in 2008, Dolph Ziggler arrived, and that ended up being the version with staying power. What's easy to miss now is that Dolph Ziggler wasn't just one static character for years and years. At first, he was the arrogant heel obsessed with perfection, all confidence and vanity. Over time, that turned into something more sympathetic. A guy fans got behind because he could fight from underneath, sell like crazy, and make everything feel urgent. And later, the character shifted again into this more bitter, self-pitying heel who insisted success and opportunity had been stolen from him. That version worked too, partly because it was rooted in something audiences had actually watched happen over and over. This is probably the core frustration of his WWE run. He had top-level in-ring skill, he could talk, and he had that rare gift for selling where a match suddenly feels more dramatic because he's in it. And yet the pattern kept repeating. Audiences would latch onto him, momentum would build, and then WWE would cool him off again. One of the clearest snapshots of that came in 2012. He wrestled 90 televised or pay-per-view matches that year, the second most in the company, so he was visible all the time. But he also had the most losses, with 57. So he was constantly present without consistently being elevated, which is a very specific kind of career treadmill. By 2015, critics were hammering WWE's 50-50 booking in general, arguing it made the roster feel interchangeable, and Ziggler was one of the clearest examples of the damage. He could still connect with crowds, but the character had been yanked in so many directions that it got harder for any version of him to stick at full strength. Then he leaves WWE in September 2023 after 19 years, starts using his real name, and the whole picture changes surprisingly fast. What he didn't do was just recreate the old act somewhere smaller and call it a reinvention. He went genuinely international and worked across promotions in a way that made him feel newly valuable, not nostalgic. In 2024, he won the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship in his very first NJPW match, then captured AAA's Mega Championship, and also won the TNA World Championship. He later became a two-time TNA World Champion, and taken together, those title wins completely changed the frame around him. Instead of being remembered mainly as the underused WWE guy who could have been more, he started looking like a credible cross-promotional champion who finally got to cash in on a lot of built-up equity. Sometimes a career doesn't need a dramatic makeover so much as a different ecosystem. The other part of his story that deserves more attention is comedy, because this wasn't some random celebrity side quest. He spent nearly a decade studying comedians before he first performed publicly in 2013, which tells you he took it seriously long before he could really claim the title. While still in WWE, he started headlining tours and smartly used the wrestling schedule as a built-in audience funnel, booking stand-up shows around major events like SummerSlam and Survivor Series. After the 2019 Royal Rumble, that approach grew into a headlining tour, and it's kind of a perfect wrestler move if you think about it. If a town is already full of your fans, maybe tell some jokes while they're there. He also hosted 53 episodes of WWE Download, appeared in film and television, showed up on Comedy Central's Roast Battle, and kept building a broader media presence beyond the ring. So even during the years when his wrestling push felt uneven, he was still expanding the overall career. Looking back, Nemeth's career feels less like a straight rise or a missed opportunity, and more like a long argument with the limits other people put on him. He had the amateur pedigree, adapted to gimmicks that should have sunk him, survived the stop-start booking, and then left to prove he could still be a featured champion in multiple places. That doesn't erase the frustrations of the WWE years, but it does make them look less like the whole story. So if you only remember Dolph Ziggler as the guy who always seemed one good run away, it's worth updating that picture. Nick Nemeth's career ended up being a lot bigger, weirder, and more resilient than that. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.